Welcome back to Porch Chats, you guys. Happy Tuesday. Oh!
This is not sponsored. I wish it
No.
Maybe one day we'll be sponsored by Poppy.
If somebody in the community works for Poppy somehow, get us some connection there. That doesn't make any sense. Welcome back to Porch Chats, you guys. We're crying a little bit from last episode.
Yeah.
If you didn't see it, we read some of your comments and they were super sweet and encouraging. So
super sweet, and I'm a crier.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you watched season 1, you know Taylor cries most episodes.
Not every episode. I feel like this time I've actually held it together.
Yeah, I think you actually have.
A little bit more.
I've been a little bit surprised.
Yeah, me too. Well, I feel like a few I knew what we were gonna say, so I was a little bit more
prepared.
Yeah, prepared. So it made me a little less weepy.
Okay, so we talked about it yesterday. Which is my hair crazy?
No,
I feel
it's fine.
A little ragamuffin-y. What a weird phrase that is. Your hair. No one cares about my hair. So we talked yesterday about how we had the flu and the last few weeks have been crazy. But we kind of wanted to do a little update today on what the actual craziness has been. If you're cool with that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of twofold. So when we got the flu, originally I was a little bit concerned with my fever and stuff because obviously when you're pregnant, you don't want your fever to stay elevated too long. You don't want your fever to be too high for too long. And it can be a concern if the only way to keep your fever kind of at bay and in a safe place is if you're taking Tylenol. So and so I just was kind of in contact with my midwives and stuff just to I didn't want to underreact because that actually is more my tendency with medical things is to be it's fine. So I just wanted to make sure I was being careful. So we kind of had a little bit of a scare. So we ended up in the hospital, which it sounds a little bit more dramatic than it was. You just have to check into the hospital so they can monitor the baby and everything. I felt like I was potentially leaking fluid. So that was the main reason that we went in, because obviously if my water would have broke prematurely, or I was also having quite a bit of contractions and they were pretty consistent and they were starting to get worse. So there was some concern that I was going into labor. And obviously it would have been a little bit early because I had just turned 34 weeks. So,
which, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
We're past the point where
where he would be okay, obviously.
He would be in the NICU, but he would be okay.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah. For sure.
He would, yeah.
Yeah. So there was obviously concern and we needed to be safe and be in the hospital. But anyway, so it also, the main reason we ended up staying there a longer time too is because my heart rate was pretty elevated. So obviously when my heart rate is elevated, that can cause stress on Milo. So Milo's heart rate was also elevated and he was a little bit tachycardic. I think that's how you say it. Tachycardic, probably tachycardic. Which essentially is just a fancy way of meaning your heartbeat is not correct. So
meaning you had the heart, you were sitting down and you had the heart rate of if you were jogging.
Yeah, a little bit more so. Well, and a lot of it was my coughing, which that was an interesting thing, but it seemed my cough was elevating my heart rate, also causing stress on him, which really does make sense. Also, if you think about your muscles that are contracting every time you cough and the way that would affect the human that's inside your belly.
Have much space at this point.
So there's a lot of factors. And anyway, so the first time I was in the hospital, I ended up just having a few bags of fluid. They did, because I was also dehydrated, so they gave me a few bags of fluid through an IV and
I'm gonna get mine out.
So we ended up staying for a few hours, and then thankfully everything seemed to just kind of resolve itself, because they kind of tested me to make sure I wasn't leaking fluid. I ended up not leaking fluid, which is great. And then
so you weren't going into labor?
No. I am dilated to a centimeter, but that's pretty normal. Like my body's just kind of starting to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we kind of went home after that day and everything seemed to be fine. Which everything was fine. Everything still is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that was definitely a little bit scary though. It was like the first time I never really had any scares or anything like that with Weston. We had like one little thing that we were worried about with Weston, but it didn't end up like there was not any like immediate like effect.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely a challenge, you know. Anytime something happens where we're not anticipating it, and especially with pregnancy, and everything can feel a little bit just like unknown and scary, and especially when you like have to go into the hospital, and in our mind too, you know, you kind of have to fight the battle of like not going to the extreme of like, oh, we're gonna have this baby like right now and then this is gonna happen. So I was thankful. I feel like we were able to like rely on the Lord and stay peaceful, and I was thankful too, just like I'm so thankful our family is close, because we had them with Weston like when we went to the hospital, and we were there for like 5 hours. So so we're so thankful that like my parents and Marcus's parents are close. That's been a huge blessing. So that happened on
last week sometime.
Last
Wednesday
week. I don't know. It's all very much a blur. So that happened, and then we came home, and then I ended up actually back in the hospital because I was concerned about my heart rate. But everything.
A day or two later.
But a day or two later, and then we were there for a little bit just so they could kind of monitor me and monitor the baby. Essentially, my heart rate was just sitting higher than I'm used to, so it was causing kind of some dizziness for me, some like out of breathness, also still recovering from the flu, obviously. So, but glad that we went back in just to kind of monitor and make sure things were okay. And then, so fast forward after all of that.
We don't have the flu anymore.
We're recovered, aside from our lingering cough a little bit.
And then Friday or Thursday night.
Yeah, it was Thursday night. I woke up in the middle of the night and my palms, this is very random, so my palms of my hands were itching so bad, and so were the bottoms of my feet. And like woke me up like out of my sleep, like, and I was just really confused. I thought my skin was just dry. So I was like putting lotion on, like putting socks on my feet, like after I put lotion on to like try to keep myself from scratching, because I was like, maybe I'm just like dried out. Well, and because I took a ton of showers when we were sick. We both did, because that was like something that helped our fever, and when you're sick you like just feel gross. So I figured I just like dried my skin out, I guess. So then the next day I kind of forgot that had happened, and then I was like, you know what, I should probably like look up and see, because I never really like Google symptoms, which is probably good. I don't feel like I'm in the habit of being like, oh, I feel this way, I need to like look it up and figure it out, because you know you can Google diagnose yourself and freak yourself out. So
absolutely,
I kind of tried to avoid that, but then I was like, you know what, it's very specific.
Started itching again.
Yeah, and I started itching again, so I was kind of like, maybe I should like look up and just see. So something popped up that was pretty much like, this was like the only symptom for it, essentially. That and dark pee, which
all right,
that's kind of personal, but yeah.
Let them know, babe.
Well,
you got dark pee?
That's the main. Yes.
Okay.
Why did you ask me that? I didn't even say I had it. So essentially I had like the only like symptoms for this specific thing that can be contracted in pregnancy. So I ended up just like messaging my midwives and kind of telling them about it, and then they're like, okay, let's get some blood work done. So I got blood work done on Friday morning, and essentially my blood work came back later Friday afternoon and confirming that I have this thing called cholestasis, which is common. It's common but uncommon, and it is manageable, and everything's going to be okay. But essentially what it is, I'm not a medical professional, so please, if anyone is a medical professional and I describe this poorly, give me grace. But it just means, what? You keep looking like you're like trying to talk. What do you want to say?
No. I'm just watching you. Go ahead. I'm not. Do you think? Sorry.
I just keep feeling like I'm like waiting for you to like try to say something.
No, go ahead. Sorry, babe.
Am I talking too much?
No. I was just listening. Sorry.
Keeps sucking me out.
Go ahead.
Stain on my dress. So anyways, it's called cholestasis of pregnancy, and essentially what it is my liver is not functioning properly, and when your liver isn't functioning properly, it can cause like buildup of toxins in your body, and that is what causes the itching. So I found out I had that through just my regular labs. And pretty much what it means is that like they're going to be able to manage it and it's going to be okay, but I'm a little more high risk now, and so is Milo. And what it practically means is that I'll have to go in to be like monitored twice a week, through like he'll have to be monitored, just like through testing my fluid and watching him like on an ultrasound, and they do kind of like a stress test sort of thing, and they watch for like his all of his respiratory function and all of that. So definitely a little bit of a curveball, primarily because people who have cholestasis, they don't go past 37 weeks. It can be 37 to 39, depending on pretty much the level of toxin in my body, how uncomfortable I get, and if Milo's doing okay. So pretty much that means I'll be induced potentially 2 weeks from tomorrow. So that has just been a little bit overwhelming.
The window just closes like a little, like.
Yes. And obviously it adds an element of just like fear, you know, when there's something that's going on that's out of my control. Like there's nothing that I did to like cause this in my body, or and there's really nothing I can do to like to change it, to really make it better. I mean, I can do things to like help my symptoms. But it has just been a little bit overwhelming, and obviously there's been fear and concern for Milo because now there's something going on in my body that isn't really safe for him. And it is going to be okay, and they know how to handle it and treat it. And I am really thankful that I had those symptoms. You know, that was one of those moments too.
Figured out.
Yeah. And just that I trusted kind of like my gut with my body, you know, like being like, something seems off, and trusting that. And, obviously that's the Lord. So I'm thankful that we're aware of that. But that's kind of what's been going on.
A good thing, I don't know if you said, but like it goes away after birth.
Yes, it does, which is so crazy. No, and it should. Everything should go away, and they kind of do some monitoring to like make sure everything pretty much returns to normal. But just with my toxin levels and things like that. So
a little bit of a pregnancy update.
Yeah, a little bit of a pregnancy update. Thank you for praying for us if you thought of us at all in our sickness and me in the hospital, and then now this. I'm definitely like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little bit just like overwhelmed. And I don't feel super anxious, like, and it's been really sweet. Milo's actually been like super active and moving around a lot, which is like one of the concerns too, is just that like he's moving and obviously doing okay and wiggling around in there, but he's been like really active, which has been really reassuring for me. And even that feels like the Lord's goodness. So I'm really thankful for that. But it definitely, I mean, for both of us, has felt overwhelming, and
it's another layer of not temptation, but opportunity for fear to arise.
Which, I mean, if you've had a kid, if you know anyone you love has had a kid, you know, like pregnancy too in general, like there's always unknowns, and especially with like labor, and you know, it's also just a relinquishing of like our own plans and our own control, because for me, and we always have to do that no matter what. So this in some ways is like another opportunity for me as the parent, and for Marcus as the parent, to understand and recognize that like we are not the authors or the holders or defenders ultimately of Milo. Like that's the Lord, and we have to trust him, and we have to trust him with this wrinkle. And and you know, even in my fear of like, honestly, it's more being induced like potentially so soon, is just like with my labor, like I really had been hoping that I was going to go into labor naturally this time, which I am still praying that maybe for some reason my body will just do it early. But I have been a little bit just like fearful of like my induction being like a super long process, and my labor being really hard and really long. And I have to entrust those fears and cast those on the Lord, and that's not an easy thing. So yeah, that's kind of been what's going on, like, with our family and what we're processing. And also we've been kind of like running around like chickens with our heads cut off this weekend because we're just trying to get things done. Like, we had to get another car seat. Like, we're just kind of having to
together.
Yes, which is totally fine. And
all good things, but
practical things.
Timeline, we were like, oh, okay, we have like a few less weeks potentially. So like, let's get it.
Well, and I'm supposed to have like a baby shower next weekend, which is kind of funny. So potentially I could be having a baby shower like literally right before we're going in to have Milo. So, but either way, we're so thankful for the Lord's provision and
bringing us this far in pregnancy.
Yes, absolutely. And just me recognizing the symptoms and the fact that I'm able to like, now I'm like taking medication for it. So they're managing it. Everything's going to be okay. And really just relying on the Lord to protect Milo, because just like I had no control before this, I have no control now. So it's the same. Yep. So
exactly.
It's just another chance to trust. So
podcast wise, it may change things. If you see a post, we may, like, oh, why aren't they posting every day now? Like, there may be a reason.
And we're going to try to get ahead of it. But also the hard thing too with my symptoms is like my symptoms already have gotten worse even since we found out on Thursday. Like, I'm just going to get probably more uncomfortable. Unfortunately, like the itching and things are just going to like, it's kind of weird, but it's just going to become probably less manageable. So we're going to do everything we can to like have some episodes ready and stuff. But we're definitely going to obviously prioritize like my health and Milo's health in this final stretch. But yeah.
But we made it to the last little bit, and praise the Lord. We'll be trusting him for this next little bit, and then Milo's life for the rest of his life, The
worries just change shades. They're never really gone, you know? So, but we're really thankful. And thankful for, honestly, just like, there's some really great things about modern medicine and the hospital and midwives and doctors. And I'm just thankful for, the awareness of what's going on. So,
All right, guys. Well, that's a little bit of an update. These last two episodes are kind of more like personal, like, hey, come sit on our porch and let's chat about like what's going on in our life rather than like a super deep topic. But we hope you're okay with that.
And definitely would appreciate you guys' prayers. And I've gotten some questions about it, so kind of wanted to share anyways. And we've always been pretty open about things going on. So yeah,
absolutely. That's all we got for this. Follow the Instagram and TikTok, Porch Chats Podcast.
Do it. Hopefully we'll get some stuff posted on
there. We'll get some stuff.
That was our plan. We're going to start posting some clips and we'll get it started.
Also, if you leave a review on, I think, Apple Podcast or Spotify, we'll read those next week.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
Leave some reviews. We'd love to see what you think.
Yeah.
And it also helps.
We love feedback.
Helps the podcast.
Yeah. So totally does.
We appreciate you guys, and
love you
we'll
guys.
see you tomorrow.
Talk to you soon. Bye.